Welcome to the Men's Health Unscripted podcast with Patrick and Cam.
We're focused on everything on men's health, look at your emotional, your physical, and your spiritual well-being. You're going to take care of that and make sure you keep on going.
What's going on, guys? It's Pat and Cam, and we're here with the hosts of the Quiet Riot podcast, Tim and Tom.
Good day,
Couple
gentlemen.
of sad boys.
Back on.
A couple of sad boys.
I'm just kidding, but realistically, these guys are crazy enough to start a men's mental health podcast. And kind of we're in the same boat and just want to know what made you guys want to do this crazy endeavor?
Well, I guess I kind of got into podcasting during the pandemic because the pandemic really hit me hard. Never believed in depression before, and was basically just curled up on the couch all the time. And with my friends, we started a let's call it a comedy podcast, but it was just really a way for us to get together when we couldn't visit each other, because podcasts were under the broadcasting umbrella. So we were actually able to get together in person and record a show, and we wouldn't break any rules. And I really enjoyed the whole process of podcasting. And once that kind of slowed down, I kind of reviewed everything what happened, and I was like, shit, this is a really good idea to talk about openly, because I'm a social person and I really shared things with my friends, and Tim was actually there for me when I was at the lowest, and figured, hey, this would be a perfect opportunity for us to sit at a table, talk about our shit going on in our lives, and throw some mics in front of us and just kind of share it with the world. Hopefully it helps somebody, maybe it inspires them, or kind of just can relate to us or our problems or our guests' problems, and maybe help them in a way to overcome some issues.
That's awesome. Had going into it, Tommy brought the idea to me. I've been podcasting for a number of years as well, and on a show that's mostly just about being ridiculous and offensive, but
yeah.
But he brought the idea to me. It's always been something I've cared about. It's a subject that I've experienced myself and as a third party to other people. And so I thought it was a great idea. I said, yeah, let's try it. And we really had no idea going into it what that was going to look like, what we were going to talk about. We had no fucking clue.
No.
We're just well, let's just turn mics on and see what comes out. And so the first two episodes, I mean, if you've listened, you guys have listened a little bit, and it's like asking people to be in this state of vulnerability. And we actually did an episode on vulnerability, but and we were like, okay, well, if we're going to ask people to do that, we should probably do that ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first two episodes we did were just him and I sitting, interviewing each other about a significant story or something in our lives that sort of impacted us and made us want to do this. And that's kind of how it came out. And we're not that far into it, so we've got lots of episodes that are a little bit different, and we're figuring out sort of what we want to talk about with people. And I mean, the big thing is you let people tell you they'll tell you what they want to talk about if you just listen to their story. And so for us, it's very much like a story thing, and we go through an experience or kind of a history depending on who was on the show. But it's been really interesting, and it's far different from the other podcasts I've done as far as this one, actually what I say matters, and the other one, what I say doesn't matter at all. And so it's very different in that sense, but I really love it, and we've connected with people. I get a lot out of it every time I do it.
Every single episode.
I get something out of it myself. There's always a little nugget or something. I find it's even for the week I'm having that week when we record somebody, there's this thing in the universe that brings these people to this table or whatever, Zoom, and there's always something in there that I take with me when I leave that episode with somebody. So it's really interesting. It's been a short journey, but an interesting one so far.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was I just kind of led off with that question just because this morning when I was getting coffee, I had the Men's Health Unscripted shirt on, and this guy walked into the coffee shop dressed like Santa Claus, and we start shooting the shit or whatever. And I said, "Where the hose at?"
As you would say, and
right. I mean, who doesn't greet Santa like that?
Right?
And if you don't, you have a problem. And so he so we start talking, and he goes, "Well, that shirt on, and if you've seen our logo, it's a microphone and headsets,
Yeah.
and if you see anything else, you got a dirty mind." But we start talking about it, and I directed him to the podcast, and he's like, "Dang, you guys are pretty popular." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, we're doing our thing." And he's just like, "Well, it's just such a tough topic to talk about. Guys don't want to talk about their health or mental health or whatever." And I was like, "Well, yeah, anybody can start a marketing podcast, right? Just read a
Yeah.
couple books." But so we're kind of riding parallel lines. This is why we wanted to have you on the show. We were on Quiet Riot podcast initially and noticed that you guys are doing something very similar as far as getting real accounts from people
Yeah.
and trying to help people find solutions with specifically mental health.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have talked a little bit about fatherhood, um, just mental illness in general. And the topics so far are pretty diverse, but all very relevant to the world of men's mental health today.
100%. I love like that. Yeah, we don't necessarily have an agenda, but after every show, we get one or two messages like, "Oh my God, I could relate to this, whatever you guys talked about so much." I had actually one of the ladies reached out to me, and she said like, "Holy shit, now I actually understand what my husband's going through," like, which is amazing because I think that's a big issue too, that a lot of the men that don't necessarily talk to their spouses about what they're going through necessarily, and I just love that.
Yeah, do you like how's that experience been for you? And I'm not going to flip the interview around here, but how's that experience been for you guys as far as you're a men's focused podcast like we are, but like I think I've always thought that it's equally as important for women to listen to my show as it is for men.
Oh yeah, because we found out, like, especially in our early days, when we were doing this with school stuff and we were kind of doing community outreach, a lot of times it was like their wives, their daughters that were kind of like getting our pamphlets, getting our information, or even trying to drag their father or their husband over.
Mm-hmm.
We've had it a few times where like the wife was like physically holding the arm, dragging this dude over to talk to us about stuff.
Nice.
Every man
I
loves
mean,
that
Yeah.
shit.
it's a little bit rough to like walk over because like when we first started doing it with school, we had white coats on at times, and it's kind of difficult like coming over and talking to a guy, especially some like 30-year-old kid in a white coat yelling at you about your prostate, and it doesn't really kind of sell it well. But
Bring those
it's
bedazzled
stuck in their
jeans over
minds.
here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's stuck in their minds though.
Yeah.
I would say that Cam and I did an event. We'll plug them, the Hope for the Holidays. Was that a week ago already?
That was last weekend, yeah.
Dude, time is just booking. But at the very beginning of it, we kind of put ourselves in this little funnel because it was raining, and normally you have this whole outdoor area. It's a wrestling show, and everybody got crammed under this like big overhead deal, and we put ourselves like right in the funnel where people had to go walk by, and it was just like, bring that prostate over here, dude. We got to talk to you.
It
You
was
doing like
super.
free checks or what are you guys doing over there?
Well, we're sponsored the event. It's a great event. So, Logan, the cheese, everybody kind of who listens to this, they basically raise up funds, donations, and toys and stuff for the local kids in there for the area. So it's a good event to have come out. And it's interesting because they put on the wrestling matches, and then you have a huge gamut of people who come to see this. So it's very interesting to see like multi generations and different stylings and stuff. But we sponsored it, so we'd have our booth there, just trying to support it and also put our logo out there. And seeing the logo, it's on some things, it's on our stickers. So like we'd had some occasions where people like kids would go by and kids are like wanting to grab the stickers, and their parents who look like they're pretty alternative individuals are like trying to like shield their parents or their
Yeah.
kids from the logo. And I was like, brother, what the fuck are you doing with like half your head shaved, the other half is like rocking the long like down your nips, but
Yeah.
here the headphones is too much for you, little man. Like, like calm the fuck down.
And I mean, really, kids see headphones and a microphone. That's it. Like
That's all they
see.
they won't see what's behind it. Really,
Unless
sure,
they're
I mean,
raised
some
right.
I'm sure in his mind he was like, free shit, let's do this, because like
Yeah,
we had some
right?
stickers and some cups
Yeah.
and some dress
Kids
balls.
love stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love that shit.
And the best part is like they stick it on stuff.
Yeah,
They actually use them, and so they put them on places. Whatever. We had a good time. They filled a U-Haul truck full of toys for the
Awesome.
kids. So
nice.
it was a
That's
great
great.
event.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Good for you guys. So
Yeah.
yeah, like you guys are really focused. One thing I liked about your show is that you're really focused on like physical health. Like you have such a portion of your show that's about physical health as
Hmm.
well, and we don't cover that. We're not any standard to be set by that, and we don't have a bunch
Yeah,
of doctor friends to come and do that with us.
yeah.
So I appreciate that you cover that because I think, and I think we touched on this in the show that you guys did with us, but it's that your physical health and your mental health are so tied together.
Hmm.
And when you had the what was it, Dick Daddy or Doctor Dick Daddy or whatever on there, and
Oh
The
like
yeah.
Dick Daddy, yeah. So
yeah,
now,
Dick
yeah,
Daddy.
you can girth up your dick now.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that was a thing until I listened to your episode about it.
See, I never had issues with the girth. It's the length that I'm
You got the
struggling
tuna
with. Yeah.
can thing happening.
The it's we just try to cover stuff because like at the end of the day, like that could potentially give a guy confidence, like that could be
Yeah.
for them,
Yeah.
right? And you have so many people that I guess they can find issues with their mental health, they can find issues with their body when they look at themselves in the mirror, whatever. But there's ways of, I guess, altering it, or there's ways of making yourself feel better. And so I think a big part of men's health is just restoring confidence that men might have lost just over the last
Due
few years,
to
especially.
yeah.
And I think a lot of guys feel really suppressed. And, Cam and I had a podcast with a gentleman, and like the college retention rate is just on this like downward tumble for guys. Like guys are just feeling left out of the system.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's a confidence issue, just changes in society. And I don't think young men are being pushed in that direction anymore. And a lot of them are just kind of feeling lost. And so helping
What do
them
you
find,
where do you think they're being pushed? What do you feel they're being pushed to in place of that?
I wish I could say something constructive, but I don't think they're
yeah,
really being pushed into a direction. They're just kind of being left to fend and figure it out for themselves.
Mm.
Um, and
Yeah,
that's
like
not obviously good for anybody. It's not
that.
good
Yeah.
for development at all.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I think that young men nowadays are being suppressed by the society of like men, and some people might get pissed off about this now, but like, like, oh, you're supposed to know what to do. You're supposed to be able to figure your own shit out, and there's so much support for women nowadays, and everyone's like pushing, oh yeah, women should be able to do this, like going into trades, which is fine, that's totally okay. But I just don't hear that, like, oh, men should try to go and do this or that. And I just think like it's just we're being held back a little bit by today's standards, what's
Are we
being
are we doing it
pushed.
to ourselves as men? Are we? I mean, obviously, we're allowing this thing to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, and
so
I think that's why we're here to talk about these things, right, and get someone else's perspective on it, maybe.
I would say that I think with men, now that I kind of got a couple seconds to think of it, there's too many distractions in the world for young men, and there's too many ways for young men to get very cheap dopamine. You have
Hmm.
porn, like the
Hmm.
OnlyFans, you have gambling, I guess. Like there's so many ways that guys can get wrapped up in the cheap dopamine,
Yeah.
and so what happens is you just kind of like video games, whatever, and everything's good in moderation. But when you start traveling over to the area where it's no longer moderate and it starts becoming addictive, I mean,
Hmm.
I don't see kids out playing sports in the street anymore. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
rare. And even like recreational sports, like I used to coach baseball, is like this finite thing, and it's really kind of just for the parents. And they pay a bunch of money for their kid to go play sports or whatever. And that's kind of a lot of the interaction. But I mean, this is my experience in pharmacy school. There was no team building skills with anybody. Like
No.
none of them were working as a team. There's very few people who had that concept. And then by the time we made it out, I mean, by third or fourth year, they put you in teams, and there's really no team development.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say the school was responsible for teaching them that, but they put you in a situation to learn it. But there was still just such this like individualized, let's break everything apart. So I think guys have way too many cheap dopamine grabs, and it's
Yeah.
keeping them from enjoying the long haul.
Mm.
Right? Like how many things I know I know one of you guys is a businessman. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was,
Yeah,
but
it's
like
Tim. Yeah.
Tim, how long have you been in business? Like, I imagine your first couple years might not have
Yeah.
been the best, right?
No.
And so it's like one of those things where you have to appreciate the small wins and the overtime
And the
before you
long
really
game,
get,
yeah.
yeah,
And life is a long game, career is a long game, relationships are a long game. Like you talk about this, and I think I agree with you wholeheartedly that like we're in a we're in a world now where instant gratification is so easy. And so you talk about that quick, cheap dopamine hit. Well, that's what that is. It's just you can look up something, you can get an answer, you can, yeah, you talked about porn and gaming and all this stuff. Like there's so many ways to get instant gratification, and there's also so many ways that if you don't get it from something, you can just do something else right away that maybe
right.
also gives you that.
Yeah.
And so careers and schooling and education and long-term personal development is exactly that. It's long term. It has ups and downs, and you got to be diligent to go through it. I mean,
But even that's changing. Sorry to interrupt,
no,
but
no.
like my buddy who's a pilot for I don't know how many years now. He says when he went to pilot school first, it was a certain amount of years, and it cost him like 70 grand. He says now you can go get your pilot's license for 10 grand in a year, and you're done. And like I think even that's changing, that you don't have to necessarily get that education if you want to, unless you're well, if you're a doctor, and these things take longer, but like certain I guess jobs that don't require as much training, they're just so much faster. And
Well, and
is that good?
maybe that's a response to the attention you can get out of somebody
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Like, is it 3 years to be a carpenter, or do they have to now make it 1.5 years because nobody's gonna want to be a fucking carpenter
Yeah.
otherwise?
Right.
Yeah, I
What do
think a
you?
lot of it is money pushed on that because sometimes, like, you think of some of the bigger schools, so, keeping pharmacy, since is what we did, kind of in mind. A lot of schools, historically would have small classes, but then some of the bigger colleges was like, oh, we can kind of ramp this production up, get
Yeah.
us, instead of having 40, 50 kids. Some of the big schools have satellite campuses and they can push 400 students out a class. And that's a lot of money that's coming in
Oh
wherever
yeah.
it's coming from. So I think some of it is business stuff.
It's
And
big
yeah, like the,
business.
the hardships of it definitely kind of apply. Because we saw this during our time. So to get into pharmacy school, most schools require you to take a test called the PCAT. It's a grueling, annoying test. But during COVID, they actually suspended it. So there were actually student classes who were coming in who did not have to take that testing requirement. So while it may be better in some ways you're looking at it, it's kind of like lowering that bar
Yeah.
one way. Um, so social stuff kind of applies into it
Yeah.
pretty
So
well.
what do we do as older men? I'm gonna put quotations around that because fuck being old. But what do we do as older men? Just A, support the younger generation of men coming up, and like B, support our peers in that sense to see things through, and how do we assist them with that sort of like, no, you got to push through the short term dopamine hit,
Yeah.
as Pat said, and just like we got to do something like ups and downs, man, long game. How do we do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this might be a little bit of a controversial take, but, and I'm not saying to the full extent, but some degree of like initiation or hazing probably wouldn't hurt. Like, I know
Yep.
it sounds worse than it is because I know a lot of bad stuff has come from it. But I mean, coming up, I think about like the first time I made varsity in high school baseball. They shaved my head, and it was like I was so stoked to have my head shaved because there was initiation there. You're part of a group of people,
Yeah.
and I've kind of had these series of events happen in my life because I've done different things. And, Cam and I got to share graduation from pharmacy school. That was like, for lack of a better term, that was just a huge nut
Yeah.
because like you put all of this time, and really at the end of the day, like you go at it with other people. I mean, you're living it, like you're living the same stuff. So you have this bond, like this brotherhood and sisterhood with the people that you do this 4-year journey with. And no matter whether you like them or not or whatever, you still have a mutual respect for them because you all did this same thing and everybody knows what it takes to get there. And I think a lot of people are just getting away from that type of those type of bonding experiences, those initiations, those kind of things that all bring people together. Because if you look at it, guys are super lonely now. And guys are reporting being lonelier and lonelier, and probably a product of COVID and some other things. But I think there's a real lack of that type of environment. And then you have, the other, it's making them feel lost. They don't have a community, I guess is probably the
Yeah.
best way to put it.
Yeah, that's a great. We did a show earlier this week with a guy. He's a hypnotist out of Las Vegas, and he talked about his story, and he wrote a book actually, and
Yeah.
and his big point was like community. People, if you don't have community, like you're fucked. And that's not the way he put it, but that's simply the way.
Yeah,
he put it.
basically, yeah.
If you don't have a community, you're fucked.
Well, and I think like me growing up, the way I was growing up, I was in a small town. I knew everybody. When I started dating my wife first, she's like, "Holy shit, do you know everybody?" And it wasn't a big town or small town, but like 10,000 people, so people knew each other. And to me, that was like, yeah, like every time I stepped out on the street, I loved being greeted by a person that I know. And then I moved here to a significantly bigger city, and I remember the first 6 months, like I was struggling because I'm like, I didn't know anyone. So I had to build that community for myself. And, now I have people that I know, and then I have my really close friends. But like, even just that, having the group of, like, let's say I go to a show, well, I can probably recognize 100 people at the show and just say hi. And it just feels good that I'm inside that community. Not everyone has that or is able to build that necessarily.
Yeah, I think that well, and that's what you guys are doing too, Cam and Pat. Like with the wrestling events, like wrestling is such a community.
Yeah.
Of people. Like we have local wrestling events here, and it's like I know a handful of guys, and it's like they wouldn't miss one for the world. Like you could probably go to any of them, and there's for sure the same 200 people at all of them.
Yeah,
and then like an in and out of others, and so that's community. And for you guys to be present at those events and start sort of expanding the opportunities for those people to see a message that's a little bit different while they're there, I think that's great. You
really
must see like positive results from that.
Oh yeah, we've experienced some of that. Because some of the shows we've done, and this could be other events too, that we may have had repeats too, where we've someone's come across and they were like, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing you guys at the one in St. Pete, or I remember seeing you at Leadfoot City or something like that." So we've had that a few times kind of happen. We do try to be kind of sporadic and kind of pop around different ones just because there's different communities everywhere, and especially in the Tampa area, it's massive. So, we've gone down to south of Brandon, which is probably a good like 50 miles south. We've gone up north. So you just kind of stretch it about. And now, my ass being up here in Kentucky, completely different environment as compared to down then. So my current community, because I don't live in Louisville proper, I live kind of just outside of it. It's like mostly older folk. So it's definitely nowhere near the same kind of situation as it was down there because you had a good mix down south. But it's definitely it's a learning experience, something you want to jump into, try to kind of develop those new relationships, those new um, partnerships, I suppose. And then especially as we mentioned earlier about loneliness increasing, it's really difficult for the modern man, I suppose, to kind of create that stuff because we have all these they're not weird. We have all these different things we're interested in, and we're kind of becoming more sheltered about it, I guess, is a way to put it. I don't know, things aren't as open as they used to be. Like I remember, like as Pat was kind of talking about growing up, kids are outside playing. You may not even have an interest in sports, but you saw kids out there playing in the field. You go out there and try it out, figure out what it is. And now as an adult, you see people doing shit, and you're like, what the fuck are they doing?
Yeah,
it's like such a different take.
No, but you're right. Like I remember playing as a kid outside, and we always had one or two kids that, like, we played soccer, and you had a kid that doesn't know how to play soccer. Okay, go in the net, but he was at least still part of the group. They were still outside.
It's like the Sandlot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you've had that, and you're right. Nowadays, like, you can't have kids playing outside because somebody will call the cops, like, oh, there's kids there unattended or whatever, like the reason is.
But I always wonder, is that just a change because we're old? And is it like, because now they're online, they're gaming against each other. Like we
Yeah.
are interacting and creating community. Why do we still feel like something's missing? Like I
Yeah.
always feel like if they're not in person together, like literally in person, body to body, uh, I feel like it's not the same. Like, is there actually, you guys might have actual chemical and medical advice in regards to what happens when people are together or they're online against versus each other and things? Is there actually anything to that?
I don't think I've seen anything specifically about like any kind of chemical differences, like with dopamine or anything else. I think more of that kind of comes into our nature as a species. Um, we are social, and I kind of feel like that by not having that person to person interaction, it's a little bit different. But I also know we're not creatures that enjoy change. We don't like change as much as we try to tout that we do.
Yeah.
So especially as we're getting older, things are we're becoming those crotchety old people that when we were kids, we were like, old man Johnson's such a little bitch. Like, I don't know what his problem is. But now we're getting to be old man Johnson. And we're like, those fucking kids don't play football. They're a bunch of bullshit assholes over there.
Oh man, when I think about it now, like I'm 40. And I remember when my dad turned 40, I thought he was almost dead. I was like, fuck, it's done. It's over for him. And now I'm 40. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah. Now I'm that guy.
Let's get wasted on Saturday.
Does my daughter think I'm going to die soon? Like, what's happening?
Probably.
Yeah, they're sitting there counting like, Dad, like average lifespan back in the 1600s was like 35. You're pretty much over that limit.
Yeah.
You're like, it's been like 300 years. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Just die already.
I think I do, and maybe it is this crotchety old thing where I'm having a hard time adjusting to what the new youth is going to do and look like. But like, I do feel like if you get together with people, it's just better and different. And maybe it's just because I'm old and that's what I always want to do. But like, I don't think gaming online against each other is the same as sitting in a room and hanging out or going outside or whatever the fuck you want to do.
So I follow Gary Vaynerchuk, and he actually talked about this, that a lot of the people come to him and say like, oh, my kid's not as social. And he actually said that kids nowadays are actually way more social than we've ever been, because when we went outside, we always saw the same group of friends. But when you're gaming online, you're probably interacting with like, hundreds and thousands of people at the same time in some games, right? And so like he was talking more about like their social skills are far better than ours ever were, but it's just different than what when we were growing up and what our social skills were at the time. And it was interesting to hear. I still didn't agree, because I think that person-to-person interaction for kids and just overall for human being is very important. Yep. Online one, you can be anyone that you want, and it doesn't necessarily show the true yourself. Like I can go online and be, Jeff. That's
I wish you were Jeff.
But like,
cooler.
but
Jeff
I can pretend,
so
but I can pretend online that I'm this awesome person. Meanwhile, I turn the computer off and I just like, I can be this sad piece of shit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So I don't know if I agree with Gary fully, but I think the skills might be a little different for the kids. I think maybe their skills develop earlier on, but yeah, I still like that in-person interaction with people.
I think a big difference, keeping with the Gary thing there, is that as you're doing the online stuff, you're really not getting that like fuck around and find out limit.
That's
you
right.
Don't know where that line is, because let's think about early Xbox Live days. Like there were some slurs going around. There was some language where if you were with the kids playing football, you can get your shit knocked out.
Oh, so 100%.
Quickly, you'd be like, yo, this is like too far. I can't say this kind of stuff. And now you got these 12-year-olds who are like fucking your mom all the time, apparently. Like, no idea. And like they wouldn't say that shit out in the real world,
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Handed to.
I think too, if you guys notice this, I mean, I see it a lot. Like the younger generation, I think that with each other, and I think in certain situations they do have more social skills, so I can kind of buy into that. But at the same time, when you're person to person, I've talked to younger people for like whatever reason, and you can't look them in the eye, because if you're watching, like they're just looking like this and they don't look at you.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing was like I've had so many people recently say, "Hey, you make really good eye contact. Like you actually look me in the eye." And I think that I mean that was something that was grained into me from every male figure in my life was like you
Yeah.
look someone in the eye when you talk to them
Oh,
Yeah.
or I'm
100%.
going to
Yeah.
smack you.
Yeah.
Which like hey, fine because it's a great skill now, but I think when talk like discussing anything with a young person like they just kind of look away, they don't talk directly
Yeah.
to you and I think that on screen to screen or whatever that's great, they can communicate effectively, but when it's in person, they don't really know how to express. I don't know how to express themselves as the right thing, but they just don't effectively communicate person to person.
Yeah.
Lack of eye contact, lack of affirmative voice. It's like look at
Mhm.
my phone.
Yeah. You ever shake a young person's hand?
Oh man, it's like a
yeah,
dead
I know,
fish.
yeah.
It's painful.
God, yeah, yeah. Dead fish, that's perfect. Yeah.
That's if the
I
hand even gets there, because like sometimes it's like an awkward. They're trying to
Oh,
like
yeah.
gang sign at you, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and I've tried to do that with my kids, and this is just for me remembering what my uncles used to do. Like, come on, give me a five and hit it harder. Like it was always like you got to do that firm handshake, right? And I always try to joke around with my friends' kids too when they give me a handshake, and I'm just like, oh, it's too much, too much. You're too strong. I think it's important to let kids know that like this is something that you should be doing because it shows that not even respect, but like just that I guess strength
Yeah.
of masculinity.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
don't hug.
No,
They don't hug each other.
like people don't like the actual physical contact, and I think I've talked about it on our show, but like my wife is a teacher, and she is always like she always taught our kids that hey, if you need our attention, if we're talking and you need our attention, you got to put your hand on my hand, that way I know that you actually require something. And that's how she was first addressing her kids in the classroom. Be like, okay, hold on, like explain it to the kids and the parents in school that look, this is the way I teach. I believe that the physical aspect is very important to get kids' attention, and it's been working for our kids too. Like it was definitely a learning curve, but now they know that if they need something, just come and touch us, and then it's almost like a silent communication, right? And I think it's important for have that physical. Now talking about men hugging, like I'm a hugger. Like
Oh, yeah.
like when you and I get together when you leave, like it's we give. I think most of the time we give
it
it.
starts and ends with a hug.
Yeah, and it's just great feeling because it's something I appreciate your time being here with me, right? Because you and I can share laughs, we can share struggles, we can we share some work together, and it's amazing. Like it's something that we need to embrace as men and not be scared to actually
Yeah. Are you guys
show
huggers?
other people.
Are you huggers?
Yeah,
yeah, we hugged right after Hope for the Holidays.
yeah. We're out there hugging those sweaty wrestlers too. Like they come by, like
Mhm.
especially the ones that we affiliate with, taking
Yeah.
images with the booth
Yeah.
and everything,
That's awesome.
getting all
Yeah.
that sweat up on us.
Yeah,
Oh,
Cheese was
there's-
really
Fantastic.
sweaty.
Oh man,
Cheese was so sweaty. Oh my goodness.
Did you say cheese?
Yeah, his name
Yeah,
is
the
Cheese.
cheese.
He's the personification of cheese. So when he comes out, he's throwing like craft singles, and then he has like a
That's
fanny pack.
amazing.
Even if you don't like wrestling, you'll love this guy. Like he wrestled Jay Lethal, who wrestles on TV all the time for AEW, and the fans cheered for him for Cheese.
Really?
This place was like
That's
erupting
amazing.
with Cheese chants. And he'll come out, and who doesn't, love cheese? But he'll come out. He's got a little fanny pack. He like smacks people in the face with cheese, throws it down, does an elbow on it. I mean, it's just great, and he understands his craft really well, and he's a lot of fun just to be
That's
around.
really funny.
Pun
Yeah,
intended.
that's
And like it
awesome.
got wild at the show because typically he has like a pouch roughly chest level in his whatever that thing leotard thing he's wearing. But I guess there was some kind of like dysfunction with it. So he had Jay down and he was kind of spread eagle towards our fucking booth. This man's goes through his pant leg, like gets that fucking fresh slice from his nutsack.
from
Oh,
Munda
Wow. And I was
Cheese.
We were like, what the
Oh,
fuck
that's
is
the
going
worst kind
on?
of cheese.
So, like he's a good guy. He's a good character. All
Yeah,
those guys are really good dudes.
yeah, all those guys are awesome. Like they're super like ingrained into the local community outside of wrestling. I mean, they really give back to the community really well.
Yeah,
So
Mhm.
it's
that's
awesome.
awesome. That's
But
super
I
fun.
wanted to move on to the next question. So how long
Sure.
have you guys been doing this podcast? Is the first question.
So we
When did we
started.
start?
Well, we released our first episode in July, but we started recording probably I'd say Aprilish, May,
Yeah, I
something
think
like
it
that
was May.
before
We
this
put
year.
a bunch of episodes in the bank because you were going away for
That's right,
a
for
month
like
and a half
5 weeks.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, but the first episode was released July this year.
So
Nice.
we recently had this question on our episode 100. We did like a little Q&A, and I think I wanted
That
to
was a great
ask,
episode, by the way.
thank you. What have you guys learned in this process? You've had, what are you like 16 episodes now?
Yeah,
Something
something
like
like that.
that.
Yeah, 16, 17. Yeah.
I don't
So
know. He's the guy to
there's,
ask
I
that.
mean, I've listened to them on and off, like when I can, and there's all different messages rolling through
Yeah.
the episodes. So what's maybe a couple things that each of you have learned about your mental health journey, other people's mental health journeys, just maybe some important key takeaways being a mental health guy.
I think for me, what I've been reminded, and I'm reminded every time we have someone different in the room with us, is that we all as men have our own story and our own journey, but there's so many common themes to all of that, and they look unique in their details, but there is some commonality across everyone's story, in that we as men, regardless of the intricacies of our journey, uh, all have a lot of the same struggle with a lot of the same things. And I think not just as men, but as people, I think we all have a lot of the same struggles. And uh, I've learned that people not love, they want to tell their stories and they want to talk about it. You have to feel safe and you have to feel comfortable and respected to do so. And then when you do feel that way, you want to bear that and you want to be vulnerable about that. And I think every time we're going to do a show with somebody, I come in the mindset that, like, I need to do that. I need to be vulnerable with that. And for me, it's so much easier to be vulnerable when there's a microphone in front of me, which maybe is the opposite of a lot of other people. I'm way less likely to talk about my bullshit or my struggles when there's no microphones than I am when there is. And I think for me, one thing I've learned through doing all these episodes is, like, I've learned that if I just listen to other men speak their truth, I get a lot out of it too. It helps me a lot. It helps me with my journey. I don't feel alone. I can always find something that's like, oh, you went through that. This is kind of what I'm going through, and it's not that different. And there's a mutual respect between us, and it's just a beautiful thing, and it really helps me every time I do this. I always feel bad because I think I get more out of doing the show than anyone else does.
You've summed it up really nicely. Like our last episode that we recorded and will be released with that hypnotist guy, I was so thrown off because I just kept listening to him, and like by the time I finished processing what he said, Tim was already asking the next
I think
question.
you said 5 things.
I think I just sat there the whole time and just taking it all in, and forgot a bunch of things that I wanted to do and say on the show. But it's amazing how much I take away from each episode, and just realizing that it doesn't matter what our problems are. They might be completely different. In some way, we're interconnected with each other, and we can relate to what that other person's feeling and how he feels and what they're going through
Yeah.
in their personal life. So it's very educational. Sometimes it is a lot to take in.
It's heavy.
And
Heavy.
I need to sometimes decompress a little bit after an episode, because I'd be sitting, I would finish up here and then Tim would leave. I'd go upstairs hang out with my wife and kids, and then just sit there quietly and just processing it. And the wife's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, what?" Like totally not even paying attention to them, because it's great information that I think needs to be shared amongst other men, because it makes me question my things too, because we're all going through shit. And I'm like, oh, maybe, yeah, that's why I was feeling that way. And yeah, It's awesome.
It's forced me into a lot of personal development.
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't have a choice. If I'm going to be honest on this show and I'm going to speak and ask questions honestly of other people, like, it forces me to face my things. It puts it right in front of my fucking face, and I'm like, ah, shit. Okay, here we go.
And it forces me to have actual really good discussions with my wife too. That helps our relationship too. Amazing.
For sure.
Those are some really good points. I actually like a lot of that because I obviously we can see a lot of our same, reflective in that. I'm the same way. Like I'm a little more talkative about things when it comes to the microphone as compared to like with regular people or even like therapists or anything like that. And I feel like it's that sense that we all kind of have as humans is that we kind of want to be able to nurture others, want to help others grow. So we kind of reflect and know that by sharing our experiences, sharing what we've maybe learned or developed from it, we're going to help somebody. Because everybody, as much as we want to think we're big, strong, tough guys, and we don't really kind of need to listen to this or hear that, we do pull something out of it.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I've gotten from most of our episodes. I have the same thing happen where I don't say a whole lot. We'll spend like an hour and a half talking to somebody and I barely say anything, but you're just like absorbing all the things they're saying and you're seeing yourself in it. And you're like, fuck, like some of my shit's kind of fucked up. I need to kind of get on top of that a little bit more. And I think it's something we all kind of hopefully as a podcast community who venture into any kind of healthcare, mental health, physical well-being, whatever your avenue is something that we're all getting is that while we're also giving information, we're receiving this information too.
Yeah.
And we're all growing ourselves because we say it a million times an episode. Growing ourselves grows our families, grows our relationships, grows our community. And then hopefully we can stop being fucking dickholes around the world. That would be nice. We probably won't see it, but
That's crazy. You guys got all of that out of podcasting because I used to have a skinny wiener and I don't anymore.
That's like I'm solely in it for Dick Daddy. Like
I'm just here for the Dick Daddy.
Well, I gotta say, since I started listening to your guys' podcast, my blowers are getting better. Drinking too much daddy juice.
We're gonna make it this morning.
Yeah, I was gonna actually make some for today, but I cut the watermelon open and it was like bad. I'm like, shit.
Oh,
so I asked my wife this morning, I'm like, hey, do you want to go for a drive to the store? She's like, not really. I'm like, all right, never mind.
At least you're being smart about it. Like I got that problem where like I don't like to waste food at all. So like I would cut it open and be bad. And I'm like, well, I'll try a little bit of it, see what happens.
I did the same thing.
Okay,
it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, all right, this is actually fucked.
Basically, I cut it in half, and you know how we have the water, it just kind of sunk in. And it was like liquid. I'm like, I should have waited too long.
That's not going to do what you want it to do.
Nope. I mean, it would have definitely. I think that could be called as a cleansing juice. You know,
you might be cleansing out of both ends with that.
That's
man.
right. Yeah, exactly. For sure. Yeah,
you'd be rocketing out on that.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh shit.
But like in all seriousness, though, I think this has like really helped me develop. I think it's improved my relationship with like friends and my girlfriend and all those kind of things because I'm effectively have taken the time instead of, I think a lot of guys, and I'm used to be 100% guilty of it, where you have this, like you're happy and then you're pissed and there's really no emotional intelligence somewhere in between. And doing the podcast has helped me connect with, I know we talked a little bit about it before on you guys, like with my yoga practice, with my work, and given me the ability to just kind of chill out and listen and then speak effectively so that I'm not just like yelling and it's, I won the argument because I'm the loudest one. Right. And I think a lot of guys were there, especially, I mean, for me, mostly in my 20s. And then as I kind of grew up a little bit, and then podcasting has really helped because you hear about, like you guys said, other people's lives and the situations that they're in. And then we also have professionals come in, therapists and things like that. And they're able to kind of help you realize, like, maybe I should have thought about that a little bit more, or did I overreact, or like ask a question, say, hey, I thought I heard you say this. Can you clear that up? Because then I might get mad, right? But we mishear things, and sometimes we'll hear what we want to hear, and it's not necessarily what was put out there. So it's just a really good way of like taking a step back and being a little bit more articulate for when we have the tough discussions. Like obviously not when things are good and happy, but when you have to sit down and talk to like your wife or your kid about something difficult, it's probably a lot easier and the message gets across a lot better when you're a little more chill about it rather than just like blowing your top. I'm not saying that's what you guys, but I used to just have a hot temper and
oh yeah, I
for no
I was
reason.
really bad with that. Yeah, and I think doing this podcast is essentially we're having a weekly therapy, because that's if you've gone through to a therapist, this is what we do in therapy. We talk about our shit or what we're going through, and really they're not, at least for me, I've never been told by a therapist, well, you should try doing this or you should try doing that. It was more just like, well, what do you think you should do about it, right? So it's like we come up with our own solutions to our own problems just by talking about it. Yeah, same thing. I used to be hot-headed and like I would punch walls and break drywalls. And
God dang, Kyle.
Now you just do that after daddy juice, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do with my boner though. All the holes are low.
All the holes in this room are weird. I don't know.
Like waist height now.
I get it now. There's a bunch of glory holes in the room.
But yeah, no, it's like you eventually talking to my wife about it, and with some friends as well in the past, I've learned to control that a little bit and like take a deep breath, and then, okay, I might be still angry, but at least I won't be raging.
Sure. I think too, just like sharing a laugh just now. I mean,
oh yeah,
we've definitely built so many good relationships off people, like with people that we've never met you guys in person, but we've podcasted with you, exchanged, some stuff on social.
Yeah.
But like, you guys are pretty cool. Like
thanks.
You guys are
pretty cool.
Right back at you.
But it's one of those things like there's, you have people on the podcast and like the subject is a little bit more serious, so you can't really necessarily share a laugh. But I think that we've really developed some great relationships with like some physicians that are across the country. We would have never met them before if it wasn't for podcasting. And I'm super grateful, like the people that know us now because of the podcast, like they've been on the show, or even people like, dude, I listened to you guys. I think there was a lady at Hope for the Holidays was like, hey, I've kind of started following you after you guys started showing up at Pride of Wrestling, and you guys are doing a great thing. And it was kind of cool because I'd never seen her before, but she clearly knew who we were. And then that just affirmation that we're helping somebody, maybe not necessarily her, but someone she loves, was pretty dope. And I think the community that we've like inadvertently built is it's awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and we're building it every time we do this.
Yep.
Right. And like every time we turn these mics on, and every time we're out in the world too. But if we're talking about podcasting, like every time we turn these mics on, we're working towards building a bigger community.
Yep.
Like we have a different guest on all the time. You guys have a different guest on all the time. And it's like every guest that gets added to that list, there's something that we all have in common now. We've done this thing together. We had this experience together. And so each guest one at a time is building a larger and larger community. And I think I love that you guys are doing it. I love that you've been doing it so long and you've stuck it out. I think that's, I'm sure doing this for years and dedicating time to it, you have to be passionate about it. You have to care, because none of us are getting rich off it, and that's not why we're here.
Yep.
And so we're doing it for legitimate, honest reasons. And I think that's hearing what you guys are doing and listening to your show and stuff. Like, I think it's great. I think you guys are doing a fucking awesome thing, and we're hoping to go as long as you guys have gone too.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Longer,
right back at
longer.
That's the sole reason why he's drinking the daddy juice. He's trying to get that longer time.
Shoot, we're gonna be calling you guys Dick Daddy before it's over with. But yeah, actually it's trademarked, so we can't. So
yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Maybe the paternal penis or something. Who knows?
Maybe not that. Maybe not that.
Dick Uncle sounds a lot creepier.
Yeah.
So as you guys have like, what are you guys plans for the future? Or, as far as guests, you guys have any cool episodes coming up that our our viewers that might be switching over to check you guys out might look forward to listening to, or any
I
topics that you guys are looking forward to discussing that you haven't yet?
So there's a couple of things we can tease a little bit. One, this interview we did this last week with the hypnotist from Las Vegas was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
That guy had such a cool story and spoke so like you get a guy like that on a microphone. He does a show in Vegas every night. Like, he knows how to speak. He's funny. He's interesting to listen to. He wrote a book. I can't wait to read it. We didn't get copies in time beforehand, but he's an author. He's had a really interesting story. I think that episode's going to be really exciting for me to go back and listen to. I don't listen to all our episodes, but some of them I do, because I actually want to. I spend so much time like doing the interviewing and the speaking that I don't get enough opportunity to see it as a whole picture. And so that's exciting. We want to do a couple of episodes where we bring our wives in. I think that's going to be an interesting conversation and give them a window to like just speak honestly in this room.
I might not release that episode, but
outside
We'll
of
keep
this
that in the
room.
back pocket.
yeah.
So I think that one will be fun. We want to change it up a bit and like bring we've never had women on this show,
Mm-hmm.
and I think if we're gonna explore that opportunity, then I think our wives are probably the best two to start with, and let them speak in an honest, open forum and see what comes out of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are certain. Oh, go ahead.
I was to say, I think it's pretty interesting getting like the women's perspective, because we've had quite a few women on who do various things, and you'll hear from guys like, I don't want to go talk to a doctor that's not a man just because of like comfort level or whatever.
Yep.
But then sometimes guys will say, well, I don't want to talk to a therapist that's not a that's, like not a man or something like that. And or some of them are like, I'd rather have a woman therapist.
Yeah.
Or and I think sometimes like we've had dating episodes, and if you listen to like guys dating advice and women's dating advice or like their coaching styles, it's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, in just how like men are saying this is how you get a date versus how women articulate it. And so I think the perspectives are so different. It's good to just get both, because you can find probably the reality somewhere here in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle, yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. It's easier for women to get a date than for guys. Let's just be honest.
100%. Women will admit that probably.
Yeah, not all of them.
Yeah,
It's
say
hard.
not always.
No, it's not.
That's how the game works, though.
Yeah.
That's how the game works. So I think we want to explore different opportunities. I think Tommy and I have decided we want to do a few episodes or a few more episodes of just the two of us talking about a subject or something specific.
Yeah, we've had good feedback from our listeners about those episodes where they just really want to hear our perspectives on what's going on. So
I don't know why they'd want, but
I don't know. We're not that interesting.
I don't want to fucking listen to myself.
Yeah, right.
No, I know in the future where we'd like to touch on like suicide. We have friends that have actually attempted suicide, and that's going to be a very heavy episode. And I think it takes time to even get that person in the studio for him to be ready to talk about. And so that's something like we're going to try to touch on different subjects. We're trying to mix it up a little bit, so we're not only talking about the same issue over and over, but maybe in a couple months we'll come back to another episode about depression, and then we'll talk about other things. But yeah, just trying to mix it up a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
you guys will notice, and I don't know if this has happened to you yet, but you'll have a guest on, and the idea was to talk about one thing, and you will. And then they'll be like, I feel really comfortable with you, and I actually feel like I can tell this story that I've never
We
told
actually
anybody.
had that happen, yeah.
We have had that.
And so if you haven't, so you've already had it happen once, it'll happen quite a few times.
Yeah.
And especially like with you guys are super cool. And I can tell that when you do have a deep topic to discuss, that you guys are respectful and you sit there and you hold space for them. And, but you will be surprised what turns up when just people even just get comfortable listening to your episodes, how much they will start to open up to you because you've become a trusted resource. And I think there's so much gratification in that because you know that you've impacted someone's life enough for them to trust you, first of all, and then continue to open up. And like, I mean, you'll get people that, if you haven't already, like in the DMs, in the emails, and they'll just write like,
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
God,
yeah,
yeah,
we've got some of
we
that.
got some emails that were like, oh, I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I gotta actually like sit down and
Take
like
time
take
to
time to
yeah.
read this. And it, at the end they said like, I don't really know why I'm writing all this, but I just felt very comfortable sharing it. And amazing,
Yeah.
just getting it off their chest, maybe, like to somebody that we don't know each other in person, but
There's definitely a lot of responsibility as well on that front. Like if you're gonna if you're gonna walk people through that, or they find a way to walk through that
mm-hmm.
with us while we're doing it, you kind of own that responsibility to take care of that.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that. That doesn't bother me. Like if people want to send a long email or want to reach out or message us, like I will take time to respond, and I take that very seriously, and it's such an honor every time they do that.
It is.
yeah, it is. And especially for guys to open up, it's, it means something. And like, I mean, there's sometimes like the emails and the DMs and stuff are always open, but there's been a couple times where I'll like open it up. I'm just like, I got to come back to this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's something that you just didn't expect, and I'll get back to it. I don't think anybody's out there said I never return an email, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it just takes a minute because you're just doing something else, and you
Yeah.
like get an email and you're like, damn, this is a heavy one.
Well,
Like
you
I
want to
need
give
to
your
like give this
100%
person.
attention to it, right?
Yeah. So Tim and Tom, as we wind it down, is there anything that you guys want to cover, that you've learned about the podcast, or anything that we haven't covered yet in our conversation?
No, I just would like to thank you guys for doing what you're doing. And like what we do, like this is very important for everyone to listen and be able to share. And I love your guys' show because you do give lots of medical facts that made me question certain things how I'm doing in my life, and I love that. It's much needed because when I go to the doctor, I don't, I tell them like, they ask me, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm doing okay. No, all right. Well, you're fine then. Right. And like,
I'm fine.
oh, this hurts. Well, here's a pill. There you go. And like, I find like, at least our medical system here in Canada isn't the best. And so I got a lot more from your guys' episodes than I ever got from a doctor, actually, just to understand how the human body works in certain ways.
It's awesome.
And I appreciate it. Yeah.
Jeez, that's
Thank
a
you.
lot, man.
Wow.
I don't have that kind of stuff. I just like these guys.
I mean, yeah, that's
No,
pretty.
I really I appreciate you guys having us on. Thank you, giving us an opportunity to share our show with your listeners and you guys. And I love this sort of collaborative thing we've been doing, and I hope it continues. I don't want to be strangers with you guys in the same way across the other way, I think. And it's just fun. I had a great time, and thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I feel
We
the same
definitely want to
way.
thank you guys for coming on because this isn't like, a one person or one outfit kind of area. It's something we all need to collaborate together with doing.
Absolutely.
So, across the globe, we all need to come together and thank you guys for what you're doing.
And like I said on our show, that I'd love to, check in with you guys again in maybe 6 months or whatever, and have you guys on the show again and just shoot the shit again, just see what happened.
There are
a couple hosers, yeah.
Couple of hoses.
Yes.
Honorary hosers.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks a lot, guys.
No, but yeah, it's in all seriousness, there isn't enough good quality men's health information. Like the Andrew Tates of the world are absorbing certain, groups of people, and I don't think that's always like the most effective message. It is like really controversial, and he's got a lot of other issues that surround him. And just like other people like that who are they are seemingly angry at society. And I don't feel like that's really what it needs to be. I mean, you can be happy and still be a man and express your happiness and love and gratitude, and even your sadness and the tough times. I think like learning to be a new man in the era or time that we live in is super important. And this is kind of what we're doing by collaborating with you guys. I mean, the more good quality information that's out there, the more personal accounts that other guys can kind of look at and say, hey, that reminds me of XYZ that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
The more relatable that we can all be and kind of just continue to move. So thank you guys for doing the work that you do. It's super important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two best hosers that we know. Quiet Riot Podcast. Guys, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll definitely be in touch soon.